Hey, so hi and welcome to one of our interview segments for today's show. I'm here with Knives, who is my colleague. We both do welfare work we initially met doing welfare work at Riposte, and we've since also both done shifts together at a night called Howl as well. I know that Knives works at other parties as well, but I don't want to take too much time introducing them badly. So I'm going to throw it over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Knives, and I've been working welfare for about maybe 3 years, maybe more. Mm-hmm. I started off working welfare for kink parties that weren't necessarily like queer focused. And then slowly found myself working in like queer nightlife for the same things. I really enjoy it. I mean, outside of this, I also do other things. So I'm a freelance set designer, and like when I don't have one job going, I tend to go like run back to nightlife because it's kind of more fun, chill, like one night, and then pop back out again.
Yeah, I think that's cool to know as well because I feel like it does. Reflect, like people who work there. Like it's not really anyone's main job, mm-hmm. or like usually people have other things like whether they're studying or like they have a 9 to 5 or like do more kind of freelance things here and there. Often like quite arty, like creative things, I think, which is more like you. But yeah, and I was also thinking as you were talking as well, maybe it would be cool to say a little bit more about the setup of Riposte and how, because you, as you said, you started doing this kind of welfare work at like more kink focused parties. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess maybe we could talk a little bit about like how sex happens at like the different events you work at. Like, yeah, that would be cool to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really varies from party to party. Riposte is a really interesting one because it's not just focused on play. You can go to Riposte and never use Playroom and have like a completely great night. Some people don't even realise there's a Playroom sometimes. Mm-hmm. The amount of people who've been like, oh my god, that's the Playroom? There's one of those here? And I'll have like a sneaky look inside. It's really cute. But like, yeah, those parties you're really not missing out by not going into the Playroom. Mm-hmm. Whereas more kink focused parties, the dance floor is great and the music tends to be great, but you want to be somewhere else. Like you normally just can't spend your night just solely on the dance floor. Be that because it's so busy or just because it's not the main area to like kind of chill in. Some parties I work have like a chiller, more relaxed playroom, and watching tends to be allowed on the sofas and stuff, so people kind of socialise and like hang out and play and touch and yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of gets at something like I mean we can talk about it now, but I also feel like it will be like a running thing throughout is like the different rules that different parties have. So you talked about just then like watching being allowed like at certain places, where others like might not allow that, or might allow it only in like certain like ways. But yeah, I think like rules in general is something interesting that we can get into. But maybe like to start out more broadly, and feel free to like reflect on this in relation to the different kinds of parties you work at as well. But yeah, like what do you understand to be the function of a welfare officer like at these events?
So for me, it's about keeping people safe, and be that in all ways, from drug use to consensual sex to like being taken advantage of and all of these kind of things that arise. So like in parties that are just like straight up kink, my role is classified as safeguarding, dungeon monitor, or like something of the sort. And that basically means I'm looking out for people who are like actually know what they're doing, playing safely, especially when it comes to kink, know what equipment they're using and how to use it, And this is all kind of stuff that I've been trained on.
What's that like training been like for those more like kink focused parties?
We kind of get taught about correct use of equipment, like how it should and shouldn't be used, and like common uses, like flogging, for example, is like a big thing, especially when you're kind of starting out, because it's easily accessible to buy tools, and like everyone kind of knows what they're doing off the bat. We get taught like what places you absolutely cannot hit. If you see someone hitting like above the butt, like in the kidney area, stop them. Whereas, and then the top bits of the thighs, just underneath the butt, is like an area that wants to be hit every now and again. And like it's also, the training is also just teaching you about kinky sex as well as just being like, okay, here are the things. And as someone who has like been in the kink scene for a while, it was kind of just a refresher, and it was actually really nice to like hear all the bits and like learn things I didn't necessarily know. At some parties that I work, they allow electro play.
Oh yeah.
Which is something that I've never had experience in, or any of that, and it's really helpful to have that kind of training to reflect back on, or like even other monitors who will know what that's like and know what they're looking out for, tell like feedback to me and be like, these are things you have to watch out for, and this is what's happening here, this is safe and this is unsafe. It's actually really good and really useful.
Okay, yeah, and as you were talking then, you said you're working at these kind of kink focused parties, and you also like consider yourself to be like part of that scene in some way. I guess kind of more generally relating to like the whole spectrum of parties that you work for, like to what extent do you consider yourself like part of the community that the parties cater to?
That's a really good question. It really depends. So for Riposte, I'm definitely part of that community. A lot of my friends go. I encourage a lot of like first timers to like that I know to go there as well, because it's just a good queer friendly party to meet lots of people at. But then there are other parties I work which I would never go to as a person, and I've never been to, and be that because the music isn't my kind of music, or the people there are just like not my kind of people, and it's very straight and like all of these things. So some of the parties I work, definitely are my crowd and definitely are my people, and like being non-binary and stuff, like I'm clearly one of the very few queer people at those nights sometimes, and it's just kind of jarring, but I'm there like money.
Yeah, it's not like you're not visibly queer. It's not like you can be like, yeah, I'm straight. Yeah. I guess like I was also interested in like that being part of the community thing. Do you think it makes it like you talked about ones where you feel more and ones where you feel less? Like does it make it like your job easier to be part of the community, or like harder, or like the same for not being part of the community?
It's kind of a mix, because sometimes, and I'm sure you've had this too, like at Riposte you see friends in the playroom, or like people that you know in the playroom.
People that you've been on dates with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, at this point in time, I'm so desensitized to it, it's just like, okay, cool. But there was a point where I'm like, that's something. Yeah.
Or like, I remember being on the door to the playroom once and just like waving to people in that I'd gone on dates with, and just being like, oh, God. Like, yeah, go have a nice time, have fun. And yeah, so sometimes it hits different.
Yeah, truly. And it's like, I think, I don't know what you experience, like if you've ever experienced this, but like if someone that you know is breaking a rule in the playroom or something, it's like, how do you approach that versus how would you approach like someone else that you didn't know about it?
Yes. Yeah, because I think I personally, that having happened, I do find it harder to tell off somebody I know. It feels like, and I also feel like I've had experiences of like working in the playroom where people I know, like, and these usually aren't my close friends, but more like people who I know like through others will kind of take the piss a bit. Yeah. And like, they feel like they can get away with it, and then I feel awkward about enforcing rules because I don't want to be like killjoy. And like make bad relations in my wider friendship group. But I really struggle with that. Do you find that too?
I've had it with the loose acquaintance where I've been like, you have to not do that now, or can you please just, and I think because I've been doing it for so long, I'm just kind of desensitized to it, or like I see so many faces that it's just like everyone blurs into a kind of anthropomorphic blob, and I'm just like, cool, you're breaking rules, do something, fix that, or get out.
Yeah.
So I find it much easier now, but yeah, I do get it. Like, if my like close friends are coming to Riposte and I know about it, I will talk to them and like beforehand be like, you have to be good because I'm not fucking around. If you fuck around in the playroom, you break rules, you're out there. Like, I'm not gonna go easy on you because I know you.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons I like was really up for having like interviewing you. I was gonna say this at the beginning, but I forgot. Yeah. So basically, when I started doing welfare at Riposte, and I think I met you on my first shift. Like the first few times we worked together, you tended to be like way more located in the playroom doing the welfare stuff, whereas I was more located in other parts of the club, like looking after people in the chill space or just generally roaming around the dance floors, checking like how people were doing. And I always admired the way you were really able to, like, I felt like you have like quite you give a feeling of like control in the playroom where you kind of just say what you want to say, and like obviously I don't know, I imagine this like varies depending on who's in the playroom, but I feel like it works, you know, like you have authority in there. Obviously there's some people who just don't listen. But yeah, that's something I find, and I do feel like as I've been doing it more, I've been like getting more comfortable with it, but just like having authority in that space, especially when faced with kind of like the more of the like gay men, or like especially cis gay men who are using the space. I don't know, do you have any like thoughts on that?
It's funny that you say that because I always really respect Tina. Tina has no shit. Like, you fuck around, you find out. And like, I haven't always been like this, like tough and hard to the rules on people and like just good with all that stuff. Like my first few shifts ever working in kink night, terrifying. Like, I didn't know how to talk to people, especially like during sex. Like, people are doing things. Like, how am I supposed to navigate that? But yeah, I'm kind of just, it's like what I know best, so I am very comfortable with it. But that's the thing, like, before I'd met you, I'd done it for quite a while. And then when it came to, like, the more welfare side of things and, like, looking after people who were taking too much and, like, ferrying them about, I hadn't done that at all. So, like, you work in completely different side to me. And I was always like, that's actually really interesting and really cool that you can just manage. Because now I've done more of the welfare side of things, I've seen people throw up in bins and just, like, in the middle of, like, and I'm just like, why? Why am I carrying you as a medic? You are like 6 foot tall. I am in heels. This is your whole body weight. I'm gonna die.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think it does feel like the role has like two kind of distinct sides to it that are of course related, because the drug side of it does come in the playroom. Like, part of our job is to be like, I guess, visually, verbally assessing whether we feel that someone is kind of with it enough to be like engaging in sex. But yeah, also like you just said, a lot of it as well is just like holding people's hair back when they're being sick, and like talking to people in K-holes. People, maybe they're coming up on a pill and they're like feeling a little bit,
it's like hiring a best friend for the night.
And a lot of it is like providing care as well. Like you say, like a best friend is, you know, people when they throw up or when they go under or like K-hole or G out or whatever it is, there's like quite a lot. There's not much G use at Riposte, I would say.
Do you think?
Well, I think there is it, but like in comparison to other parties, let's say.
Yeah, okay.
Like I don't know. But no, it is there. It does happen for sure. Like I'm not saying it doesn't. But yeah, like when people are in those situations, not always either, but like often they can be quite embarrassed.
Yeah.
They gotta just be like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. And then a lot of your job is just reassuring them that they're not like, they're not embarrassing and like, don't worry. But yeah, I mean, I think also with that side of things as well, like dealing with people who are very trashed. This was one of my experiences at Howl, I think this is, so basically I was doing like the roaming shift. Yeah. So the roaming shift is like where usually we take like an hour or two and one person is like just, as it sounds, like walking around the venue, checking the dance floors, going outside, and just usually you'll spot like
who needs help.
Yeah, you'll see who needs help, or people will come up to you because we wear like high vis. Anyway, a few people approached me about this same woman who was, I think, from my impression, I think she was just drunk, but perhaps there was like maybe something else involved as well, but primarily she was giving alcohol. And I think she just was so out of it, like she couldn't necessarily tell that I was a welfare officer and not someone who was like maybe hitting on her or trying to be her friend. And she seemed to get it at certain points, but then at other points she didn't. And then she was like trying to hit on me and like put her arm around me and like feel me up. But I'm like, I'm supposed to be like looking after this woman. And also part of the jobs of welfare officers is to like make sure people's like boundaries aren't being violated and consent isn't being violated. And I was just like, this is a weird situation, because I actually feel like my boundaries are like getting crossed here. Yeah. But my job is to look after overly intoxicated people, who like this woman definitely is. And I was also, our job is also distinct from security too, and that feels important that it is. But all of me just wanted to like get security and just be like, can you get rid of her, because she's making me feel really uncomfortable. In the end, I just I think I went to Tina, to be honest, or I think it was Tina. Perhaps it was you as well. It was definitely how you were working at too. I've only worked one.
I've only worked two. So.
Yeah. But yeah, so and then whoever it was like helped me out, and I'm not actually sure what happened to her, but basically just was like, I'll relieve you of this for now. Like just go sit down for a bit. But yeah, it was just like, what about our consent and boundaries, and like how do we manage that, like while still trying to keep the clubber's best interests at heart as well.
100%. It's a really weird one, because like obviously we all have our own like separate boundaries, but then when people get intoxicated and whatever, they need help over that. And it's just like, where is my job then giving away my consent to help other people, or is it not? Like, because then who else can help in that situation? Yeah. Like, me personally, don't fucking touch me. Like, full stop. I don't know you. I don't want you to touch me. Especially people who have just come out of the playroom. Everyone likes to, like, hug me or, like, high-five me or whatever. I know where your hands have been. Yeah. I know there's no sanitizer in there. I know we ran out, like, an hour one. Don't touch me. But then when, like, someone needs, like, carrying out and stuff, I'm like, it's gotta be me. Yeah, it's tough. And it's ongoing as well, and I feel like it would depends on the person too. Like this particular one sticks in my mind because I felt like I let too much slide at the outset, and then like she just kind of kept pushing it, whereas perhaps if I'd have been firmer at the beginning, whereas like, don't, like, I'm here to help you, but like don't touch me, don't put your arm around me, like I'm not trying to get with you. But then also it's hard because she was so intoxicated and she just kept forgetting everything that was happening. So I wonder if I had like told her that, then she would have forgotten it a few minutes later anyway. But these are like the situations that we're dealing with, like they, I mean, like I feel like
you can be trained all you want, and you can be told, like, you know, do this in this situation, do this in this situation, but like when it comes to it, while there may be similarities, like each situation is kind of unique, and each welfare officer will experience it differently too.
Yeah, 100%.
Something I didn't ask you, which I meant to, was how you like got into doing welfare work in the first place.
So when I was like about 21ish, I started going to kink clubs, and I was like, wow, this is cool. I've met some really cool people here. And then maybe like a few years after that, like during COVID times, like a really big like kink party was looking for like welfare people, like safeguarding people, and I was like, I would love to, like, I love this party, I love the vibe that you guys like create, I would love to help keep the community safe. And I got it, and I worked there for quite a while, and then I branched out to other parties. Their pay went down a little, and I was like, and their party was like predominantly really straight, even though everyone who worked there was really lovely and stuff. But I wanted to branch out, see what else was out there. And I landed at Riposte by, I think I saw a post by Eden about like looking for people. DM'd Eden and got it because I have experience in training and stuff. And then branched out to more parties. Like my friends who are like from the kink scene like run their own parties, like Quench. My friend Logan runs that, and Little Black Buff and stuff, so I also work there. And then also through like the training I had for the first party I ever worked, that training was run by Master Peter, and he now recommends me to like any parties that are looking for safeguarding people, like a few nights before someone has dropped out or whatever. So it means that I work like very random one-offs sometimes, sometimes for private parties.
Yeah, and it links back to like the kind of like connection you have to the community, I guess, because when I've like what I see of like the hiring process, I guess, for like welfare people, it often seems to happen on Instagram or like word of mouth, where, like you said, it's like great if you've had this kind of training or something that, like, you know, it's like, oh yeah, that feels good, but it does also seem to be a lot about like just assessing vibe and be like, who do you know, and like, does that kind of make you seem like someone who seems chill? And like, but it's also interesting as well, like I think where staff are hired in that way, which I think like for the most part really works, but then when you hire staff in that way and like it doesn't work, or like you maybe think they're not suited for that role, where they are part of like your community or even like quite intimate friendship group, that's challenging to navigate, because like we are colleagues, but then at the same time like it does seem like in that moment and like outside of it, you know, you're like community, your family, like you're trying to look after each other as well.
I've definitely seen that happen. Like one of the parties that I worked for, there was a person who was like ingrained into like the culture of the community, and like everyone's friends, the organisers around the party, and like the other staff and stuff. And I worked with them twice maybe in the same area, and they would just fuck off to go take pictures in the playroom, in like areas, take pictures in the, like, you're not allowed to take pictures in this venue at all. And it was just like, okay, cool, I've got the playroom queue that's busy and no like person in the playroom right now. I need you to like do something. And like they still work there, and it's just like, it's so frustrating to see. And it's kind of like, yeah, I get it, you guys know this person, so probably won't fire this person, but it's not in the best interest of the people you're trying to monitor.
And for me that kind of makes me think about like a question that like I'm currently focusing on in like my own research, but I think the question comes from like working at Riposte and Howl, and like seeing like how these like welfare roles have developed, because I feel like that, you know, they've been around for a few years now, but they still feel like a new thing, and like something that's primarily emerged like through like kink and or like queer like spaces. But like how, when you're like building something like from the community up like that, do you like retain or create actually like structures of accountability.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like how do you simultaneously like be in community with each other, but also be able to like call each other out in ways that the community can take, that doesn't like ruin it. Because like, you know, like you're saying, sometimes it almost feels like sometimes you just have to swallow stuff, because it's just like, well, you know, I know nothing will happen. But yeah, how do we not?
I mean, I've seen some really good accountability taking from a few like people who run parties. That's basically been like, yeah, okay, I have lots of like friends who will come to this event that I run, but you guys are my staff, you are my safeguarding monitors, whatever you say goes. And I've seen people get like kicked out, barred for life, even though they're friends of organisers, because if you fuck up and we say no, that's automatic no. And like being able to be like just straight up no to someone, or just being like, yes, you're my friend, but you've like done, and I know you're a capable person and great person, but you fucked up in this way and I can't have that again. Even though that you might not do it again or whatever, it makes other people who've witnessed this thing uncomfortable, and now you must go. It's like having that level of like, okay, I can step outside the situation and like look at this objectively from like people who don't know's eyes and be like, okay, this is what's best for the party. That I think is like acceptable, like kind of accountability and like where we should be leading.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna pivot to like the overarching question, which I don't know if this will be the case when it actually comes to the radio show, but hopefully I've talked about it at some point. And we spoke about this like, you know, like before we started recording. But yeah, I guess the overarching question that I've had in my head for like putting this episode together is my thoughts about this idea that when people take drugs, you know, or like when they drink and or take drugs, they then become more vulnerable or perhaps like susceptible or like open to, like, however you want to phrase it, like being taken advantage of in some way. And, you know, like in, I guess like more mainstream, I don't know what word it is, but like mainstream like responses to like drugs and sex and stuff, like the advice tends to be, you know, either don't do it or minimize it. You know, like if you're gonna like drink, like don't get too drunk, or if you're gonna take, I mean, don't take drugs because they're illegal, I guess is the mainstream advice, but like we can think about it for alcohol. And like also, you know, if you are in a venue, like make sure you're like keeping an eye on your drink, not leaving it unattended, staying in groups of friends, because the implication it always is like intoxication equals vulnerability. You're more open to being taken advantage of, or more open to being harmed. I wondered like what your thoughts were on that, basically.
I think it's a really interesting one, because I think taking drugs makes you more vulnerable, but not in that way necessarily. It makes you more vulnerable into doing things that you wouldn't normally do. And in both respects of like, oh, I'm gonna make risky choices or like do this thing and it's gonna like harm me later, and I'm gonna do this thing, it's gonna harm someone else because I'm not thinking correctly. And the last party I worked at, actually, I was roaming around and I had someone tell me that there was someone in the smoking area just grabbing people's crotches. And I was like, okay, cool, we're gonna go find this person, get them out. And like couldn't find them, but like I found this other person who had clearly like done too much. Was like, I don't know what they had taken, but they were like being like rambunctious and loud and just like irritating groups of people, and just it was really uncalled for. And then the person who told me there was someone grabbing crotches like tapped me and was like, that's the person. And I was like, okay, cool, they've done too much drugs and now they're like out there basically assaulting people. I need this person like fully out of this party. And I think, yeah, that's like a narrative that hasn't just rung true once for me. It's like happened like kind of again and again, but in like lots of different ways. Also this month, I think, I worked a party and you know how difficult it is when you kick people out of the playroom and everyone's just trying to come and like fuck for a little longer, and it's and you give them the like 15-minute warning, 10, 5
as it's closing at the end of the night. Yeah.
Well, I was doing that at party with like a bunch of other welfare people, and this guy was like fucking someone, and like they were kind of like a group, and I was like maybe like half a foot away from him. I was like, hey babes, you gotta like wrap it up now, we're giving you warnings, you're the only group in here now, and you should get clothes on. And he's clearly taking something, his pupils are huge. Just made dead eye contact with me and started thrusting. Yeah, and I was like, that's not, whatever this is, it's not fucking cool. He went like, and I was just like, babes, come on, get close. I'm not like backing down, like staring him dead in the eyes. And then he was like changing pace, like going super slow, looking at me. I was just like, ugh. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's unacceptable behaviour. Would he have done that if he was sober? Who knows? But I feel like he would be less likely to do it. In the end, I was just like, I tried my best to make him uncomfortable. And I was like, babes, you're not going to come. Go home. Yeah. And eventually they all stopped and they went. And like later on that night, I was chatting to a friend in the smoking area. And this guy saw me while he's like checking out to go like his stuff in the cloakroom. He came up to us and he's like, oh look, it's the cum denier, and walked away. And I was like, okay, yeah, and I'll do it again. Yeah. Go home.
Yeah. Well, do you know what, like, thank you so much for sharing that story, and like also like I'm sorry that happened as well, because it's
a vile kind of power play. Yeah.
Like I'm like, I enjoyed hearing about how you didn't step down and like gave it straight back, but like, you know, and like we can enjoy that, but still be like, fuck that, like that's not okay. I guess what it made me think while you were talking as well was, well, so many things, but like again, and I know I mentioned them already, but my experience of especially working the playroom door at Howl, you know, one of the things, so I think we've mentioned working the door a couple of times, and what that means basically is we stand outside the door to the playroom, and there's like a number of things we're supposed to be doing. First, checking if people are kind of like with it enough to come in. Second, to ensure that they've read the rules that are hanging up outside the playroom. And third, to kind of do like crowd control inside. So we can have quite a lot of people in there, but we just need to make sure the welfare officers who are in there like aren't overwhelmed. And you know, it can get pretty hot and sweaty.
Yes.
Yeah. So like, so you need to kind of limit that. But I've encountered like on that door, and again, like it's not exclusively, but it is for the most part from like gay men. Yeah. Like primarily cis gay men, though I might be like presuming in some of these instances. The idea that like, yeah, we are like, just as you were called the cum denier, I've been called like the sex police, or like so, and you know, I've been informed by many gay men what dark rooms are for.
Oh my god,
like,
yes,
like telling us, oh, well, actually, dark rooms are about freedom, they're about liberation. Like, you know, we like, you don't, like, basically implying that we're there to kind of curtail their freedom and like fun and pleasure. And I'm like, I mean, this is why I kind of wanted to like raise the idea of like bringing together so many different sexual cultures within dark rooms, because like within our playroom, or you know, some because historically, like public sex spaces, like whether it's dark rooms or whether it's like cruising areas, or you know, they are like primarily used by cis gay men. And you know, like what we're trying to do in these spaces is create a playroom that can be used by people of like all genders and sexualities, and to try and ensure that people can like coexist in there, while also like not saying like, you know, no cruising. Like we don't want to like say the kind of freedom, liberation that they're referring to isn't allowed. But I guess that they feel like in tension with each other or something, as if like us kind of talking about consent, asking them to read rules, like doing crowd control is an infringement. And I guess for me, like, it reeks of entitlement.
Yeah.
Like when they're trying to explain to me what a dark room is for, or say, you know, I shouldn't be waiting to go in to fuck, it makes me so mad.
Yeah.
Especially because I know they'll be reading me as a woman.
I was about to mention that, yeah.
Yeah. Which, like, neither of us fucking are, but, like, I know that they are reading me as that.
Yeah, and they're, like, most of the time they're, like, they read everyone else as, like, oh, maybe bisexual, but probably straight. Like, I'm the most oppressed here. No, you're not. Sit down.
And it's frustrating, like, I'm getting heated.
Rightly so.
Yeah, it pisses me off, like, when they try to explain to me, like, what this room is and what it's for. It's like, you know, if you want to go to a dark room that is, like, for cis gay men, like, you will find plenty.
Exactly.
Like, they are there. Like, why do you have to be, like, doing it here? And that's obviously, I can't believe I'm about to say that, but not all cis gay men are like that. Like, they're really not. And, like, you know, and feedback from a lot of people is really positive. Saying, you know, like, thank you for doing this, like, we appreciate it. But, you know, some people do really shit on you. Cum denier, sex police, like, that's fucked up. It's annoying.
No, 100%. I think it's because, like, lots of gay men especially kind of want this space to be theirs and only theirs, in a way that's, like, we're not there, like, watching over it, but, like, they can do whatever the fuck they want. And they kind of see us as, like, an obstacle in that playroom. And it's really hard to navigate, especially, like, the cruising area, like, kind of Howl and Riposte. Because both parties allow cruising and kind of solo wanking and things. It becomes kind of hard to deal with when there are people of other genders and sexualities in those spaces. They often get leered at by the, like, kind of cis men, and it's a really uncomfortable situation. And it's like, at what point do we step in? I know me and Tina had, like, issues with the person who was solo wanking at these two, like, femmes who were playing, and then this guy came out to me and was like, because I wasn't in the playroom, I was on the door, he was like, oh, I've just been kicked out, I shouldn't have been kicked out, I was just, like, looking around the room, they were just there, I wasn't looking at them, I'm, like, only interested in men, blah, blah, blah. And, it's a really difficult kind of thing to navigate. Yeah.
It's just interesting, I think, like, how different, like, people would respond to being kicked out, because again it feels like entitlement, where it's like, you know, sometimes, like, being kicked out of a playroom as well, like, to make clear, you know, sometimes it would mean this, but, you know, it doesn't mean you're never allowed in again, or at a future event, like, some, you know, often, like, we'll frame it when we do ask someone to leave is like, you know, leave for a bit, like, perhaps you can come back in a few hours, or, you know, next event. It's not like it's a lifetime ban or anything like that. I think it's just one that kind of keeps going and, like, just, like, reflects the kind of, you know, like, the politics more generally of, like, queer spaces.
100%.
And so the ideas of, like, what space people are entitled to, and how we, like, make space for people. And
I think it also just goes back to, like, that whole thing, like, Riposte is, like, a very queer, non-binary, like, trans party, but somehow, like, all the cis gays forget that. And it just becomes, you're either straight or you're a cis gay man. There is no middle ground. And, like, everyone gets kind of cast aside and, like, has kind of a, I don't know, kind of bad-ish time. And, like, there's sometimes reports of, like, transphobia and, like, and stuff in the playroom. And it's like, we do our best to get rid of it. And
it's hard, like, when we're parts of those groups as well, because because it's like you're kind of sticking up for, like, other people, but, like, the stuff you're receiving, the stuff that's happening around you, like, it affects us too. We try so hard.
No, literally, we do such a, like, huge job, and like, it's not until, like, the end of the night or the next day when you talk to someone else about it who hasn't worked that night that you're like, oh my god, relief. And you can actually fully relax in yourself, because it's hard. It's mentally so strenuous. Especially when shit goes wrong, when there's, like, I've been, like, straight kink clubs, when there's sexual assault, when there's rape, when there's, like, all these big things. It's really taxing. It's really, like, hard. For me, it brings up my own experiences. Like, just, like, this is so close to home.
Yeah.
And sometimes I need to sit out after like taking care of other people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I think that's like a kind of a good note to kind of like bring it to a close on, because I feel like we do a good job, like to the like, well, we try our best as well. I think I talked about before, to like look after each other and like, you know, check each other and be like, do you need a break?
Yeah.
Or, like,
especially after tough
out?
Situations have happened. Yeah.
But yeah, at the same time, like, as much as we can do that, like, yeah, like you feel it. And I feel like as well, a lot of us do this work, like you said, because like of our own like lived experiences, kind of pull us to like look out for other people, 100%. To kind of keep people safe where perhaps like people weren't there to keep us safe, or you know, all these kinds of things. You know, the people who are most drawn to this kind of work tend to be those who like understand vulnerability the most. But which is amazing. But yeah, it also is like, of course, like it's also like where like, how do we like look after ourselves in that context? But yeah, it's important to reflect on. But yeah, thank you so much for chatting with me about this and sharing your experiences. Is there anything like you like feel you didn't get a chance to say? Anything you want us to say before we finish?
No, I think we wrapped it up like pretty well.
Okay, amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, hopefully see you at a club soon. Okay, thank you, bye.